This is one such occasion that this commission wanted to do everything that we could to bring down the barriers to entry and make sure that you know that the government is accessible to you as you would like it to be. And this is one visible display of that happening. So a quick, strong appreciation and shout out to the staff who worked very diligently to make this meeting, not only this room accommodating for the meeting, which is very nice, but also to make it available online and I believe on our city's public access television. So thank you to the staff for your work. The format for this meeting will be that we will allow for public comment. We don't have our normal red and green lights, so our city treasurer clerk will moderate the time. Each speaker will have 3 minutes to address the commission with their public comments. Then he will politely let you know once you have reached those 3 minutes, and we'll move on. And then following public comment, the city manager and the city's budget staff will walk us through a budget presentation that'll provide a little bit more context and some additional facts. Looking down the dais, I see that my colleagues all dressed up very formally. I don't want you to take my lack of a tie as a sign of disrespect. I thought since we were out of City Hall, we didn't have to wear one. My bad.
Mr. Mayor, I second the motion.
There it is. Another no tie. There it is. Commissioner Ziffer is being kind to take his off.
It's a pleasure.
With that as by way of introduction, background, and welcome, I want to now turn the microphone over to the public, and I'll have the city treasurer clerk facilitate that process.
Thank you, Mayor. As the mayor indicated, each speaker will have 3 minutes for his or her comments. Mayor, I will point out that I've got about 15 speaker forms. If each of them spends their 3 minutes, that would exceed the normally allotted 30 minutes, so I'll let you know when the 30 minutes is expired, but not everybody always takes their 3 minutes, so we should probably be able to accommodate everybody. Perfect. All right. And with that, I'll ask the first speaker, Lauren Perlman. And speakers can come to the microphone to our right. And if you'd give your name and address for the record, we will appreciate it. She will be followed by Ed Murray.
Lauren Perlman, 6349 Fitz Lane, Tallahassee, Florida, 32311. Thank you, Mayor, City Commissioner, City Manager, for having me here today. I will be very brief given the time and everything. I'm not here today to ask for anything, which will surprise you, and we also have the Red Shirt Clan here to represent the homeless animals. We just wanted to thank you for what you have done these past several years, funding the needs of Tallahassee Animal Services. It's made a huge difference. We're seeing the adoption rates go up. We're seeing the euthanasia rates go down. We're seeing new programs that are being put in, and the quality of life of the animals are improving, which adds to those adoption rates. So there are many different things that have happened because you have funded the positions and the other things at Animal Services over these last few years. So thank you very much for doing that. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lauren.
Next speaker then is Ed Murray, followed by Kathy Bell.
Hi, guys. Hey. Hi, guys. I'm Ed Murray. What I'd like to speak to you about, my address is 1018 Thomasville Road, Tallahassee. As I'm speaking today as chairman of the Business Advocacy Committee of the Chamber. A couple of weeks ago, I sent a letter to City Manager Rick Fernandez asking for you guys to consider the repeal of the business licensing tax. That affects 12,000 business owners in this town, and it would be a great relief to them, but it'd also be a great sign that we're business friendly and we're open for business. I know it's a burden right now. It's a burden to try going through the budget with everybody trying to take money, spend money, and everything else, but we think it's very important to be the only municipality in the state to have that. So we think that it would show that we're pro-business and we're open for business. So thank you for your consideration.
Thank you.
Next is Kathy Bell, and then Lucretia Shaw Collins.
Good evening. Thank you. My name is Kathy Bell. I'm here with Colony Bell Engineering at 1624 Village Square Boulevard in Tallahassee. And also here today as the current chair of the Board of Directors for the Greater Tallahassee Chamber of Commerce. Mouthful. Like Ed, I'm also here to encourage your consideration of the business tax repeal. We certainly know this is a big part of the budget discussions, and we know that you've weighed input from various interests in our community, and that can be a difficult and time-consuming process, and we appreciate that. We also understand that you've been having very open conversations regarding your budget. You've openly discussed your revenue projections each quarter, and you've welcomed comments from even your harshest critics. And again, we know that that process takes time and continued communication, and we thank you, and we appreciate your experience and your time on this effort. I have spoken with a number of you regarding this and the importance of this to our community, and specifically for supporting businesses in order for us to be able to provide continued growth, employment, and to flourish in Tallahassee. We at the Chamber think it's critical for the city and the Chamber to work together and to continue to do so. While Ed mentioned that the Business Advocacy Committee voted to recommend the repeal of this tax, we also support your general direction and your budget, and specifically that there were no new taxes or fees for businesses or city taxpayers, and we also appreciate and thank you. We all love Tallahassee, and I believe that by working together, we can achieve great things and create outstanding opportunities for our businesses to continue to grow and flourish and employ more folks right here in Tallahassee. So thank you for your support this evening.
Thank you.
Lucretia Shaw Collins, and then Jared Wills.
Thank you, Mayor Gillum and Commissioners. My name is Lucretia Shaw Collins, and I serve as the consultant to the Bethel Empowerment Foundation and the interim program director for the Bethel Ready for Work Tallahassee Reentry Program. And I'm sorry, my address is 1942 Celtic Road. During your March 23rd commission meeting, Reverend Dr. R.B. Holmes, who's the pastor of Bethel Missionary Baptist Church, and Kevin Gay, who is the CEO and founder of Operation New Hope in Jacksonville, introduced you to a nationally recognized Ready for Work program that assists ex-offenders with reentry into the community and workforce. It was stated at that time that we had gained financial support from the Florida legislature to bring this program to the Tallahassee community, and we're soliciting your support to assist with the administrative and operational expenses for the Bethel Ready for Work Tallahassee Reentry Program. Your financial support in the lives of our citizens, our neighbors, is critical because without support when they are released, it is estimated that 65% of them will commit new crimes in our neighborhoods and will be rearrested and sentenced to our county jail and our state or federal prison. We are requesting a $125,000 investment to provide services to an estimated 65 nonviolent, non-sexual offenders in the first year of operation of a program. It costs the state over $18,000 per year to house each inmate, and it costs the Leon County Sheriff's Office an estimated $22,000 to house each inmate. Based on the replicated model of Operation New Hope, we estimate that it would cost approximately $6,000 per client for direct services provided for that 1 year period that they will be participating in our program. Knowing that I have 3 minutes, let me cut it short. The state has a 60 to 65% recidivism rate, whereas it's estimated that clients who participate in the Ready for Work program will have a 30 to 35% recidivism rate after a 3-year period. The return on the city's investment is obvious. We will be able to leverage the funds received from the state, the city, and county to bring jobs to this community and ensure that those participating will become taxpayers and no longer wards of the system. The Bethel Empowerment Foundation is identifying businesses within our community who will be willing to employ these offenders once they complete our 4 to 6 weeks comprehensive career development training program, and we've targeted certain businesses that will be able to participate with us. Commissioners, the Bethel Ready for Work program will improve public safety, save lives and families, and ultimately save tax dollars. I really thank you for your support.
Thank you.
Next is Jared Wills, and then Ted Thomas.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, City Managers. I'm here, my name is Jared Willis, 1650 Rich Street, and I'm here as the President of the Downtown Business Association. Before I get to my remarks on the budget, I just wanted to offer my encouragement in what has been a contentious budget process. I think the overarching theme that we see with the budget is how we respond to growth. And I think that that's a good problem to have, and I think that you can attribute the growth largely to policies and initiatives that have been implemented and put forth by local officials as well as city staff. So thank you for that. One of the particular areas in Tallahassee that has seen this growth is downtown Tallahassee. And we want to thank you all for your continued interest in promoting downtown Tallahassee and helping to move it towards being the vibrant community that we as downtown businesses believe it can be. As we talk about the budget, I would like to specifically encourage you to continue to look forward on the Governor's Walk. That section of Adams Street has huge potential to connect two major walking districts, being Midtown and Downtown. It is the one street that connects the Governor's Mansion to the Capitol. I think we have a unique opportunity there to continue to expand the appeal of downtown Tallahassee. We feel, the downtown businesses, that this will provide an additional amenity to the growing list of amenities that are attracting people to our urban core. This is a project that we've had a public discussion on for a long time, and we would love to see it become a reality in the near future. We would like to offer our assistance in whatever way we can from the local downtown Tallahassee business community, and thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ted Thomas, and he'll be followed by Bert Beavis.
Thank you, Mayor. Commissioners, my name is Ted Thomas of the 1469 Vucray here in Tallahassee. I was looking over the budget and trying to understand some of it. My concern is the money that needs to go back to the citizens of Leon County and City of Tallahassee. I read a piece in the paper that said that the increase in property taxes would be about $25 per household. There's 116,000 properties in Leon County. A $25 savings to each one of those households or businesses would generate $2.9 million to our economy. That's really significant. And I bring that to your attention so that you look at a couple things. One, you'll look at the ad valorem taxes that are identified in your report as generating $1.1 million. I think that's a little bit low based on my experience in the real estate community. So I would think it'd be closer to 6 to 8% that we're generating. That being the case, at $25 per property would certainly be significant. $2.9 million in our economy is significant. I'd like you folks to look at that and find ways in which we can return that to the citizens of our community. And it is consistent with $2.7 million increase that we see in the general operating, or the general fund increase of $2.7 million. So I implore that you look at this, find ways in which to give that $2.9 million back to the households in this community, because it will generate a lot more income for our community and for the individuals involved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bert Beavis, and followed by Sandy Beck.
Hello, I am Bert Beavis. I live at 3203 Ridgeland Court here in Tallahassee. But I have a real estate office at 2104 Delta Way for the past 13 years. I've paid taxes on that business and that building.
Mr. Beavis, can you lift the microphone?
Certainly, thank you.
Thank you.
Should I start over? First of all, we want to thank the City Commission for hosting this workshop after hours, and we hope you'll do the same thing for the July 13th workshop. It certainly gives more citizens that work for a living a chance to come and speak to you. Appreciate the assistance of city staff. As you know, I'm a member of NEBA here in town, a business advocacy group, and we very much appreciate the assistance and cooperation that we receive from city staff. Every time we've asked to meet with them, our request has been granted. We're very appreciative. Thankfully, the city recently found $5 million in efficiencies that were realized. But instead of giving any of that money back to taxpayers by lowering the property tax millage rate to 3.7%, the city staff has recommended those dollars be spent on future capital improvement infrastructure. Current annual expenditures in capital improvements infrastructure is about $250,000. So increasing it by the funding, by the found savings, is a way to spend dollars saved but not give it back to taxpayers. There's no reason why capital improvement infrastructure item couldn't be increased from $250,000 to say $2.5 million, and then give the other $2.5 million back to taxpayers in the way of a lower property tax. Again, as mentioned, I own my business, my building there on John Knox Road, Delta Way. We don't have homestead exemption for businesses. We don't have Save Our Homes exemption for businesses. So we pay the full-blown 100% taxes as they're given out by city and county, school board, et cetera. If the taxpayers were given the dollars to spend by lowering the property tax rate, we could spend it locally and it could boost our economy, both from individual taxpayers and business owners. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next speaker is Sandy Beck, followed by Pat Simmons.
My name is Sandy Beck. I live at 1521 Fuller Road, and I'm Education Director with St. Francis Wildlife. St. Francis Wildlife is a local nonprofit organization founded in 1978 to provide humane care and rehabilitation for injured, orphaned, and sick wildlife in North Florida and environmental education. Each year, we admit close to 3,000 animals, from songbirds and gopher tortoises to eagles and bobcats. St. Francis provides services that address our community's health and safety and add to our quality of life. The city's own website refers people to St. Francis Wildlife. We promptly respond to rescue calls 24/7. Citizens also drop off wildlife to us at 3 Tallahassee veterinary hospitals. Animals are then transported to our wildlife rehab facility, a 3,600 square foot hospital with dozens of outdoor enclosures on 35 acres. We also respond to many phone calls, emails, and social media messages every day from citizens who have concerns about neighborhood wildlife. And we present 70 outreach education programs every year. Some people ask, why interfere with nature? The majority of animals that we receive are injured or orphaned because of us, our cars, pets, buildings, chainsaws, and lawnmowers. New construction also continues to displace wildlife, and new roads further fragment their routes. Yes, citizens do bring us lots of adorable orphans and magnificent birds of prey. However, they also depend on us to pick up sick and injured rabies vectors, such as raccoons, foxes, bobcats, and bats. Animal control will respond only after a human or pet has been bitten or scratched by a wild mammal, and their only option is euthanasia. Animal control does not have the federally licensed staff or facility required by wildlife agencies to handle and treat wildlife. Our prompt 24/7 responses often help avoid animal bites, the spread of disease, and traffic accidents. We feel it would be in our best mutual interests for St. Francis Wildlife to once again be granted a continuing contract that is based on the number of animals that we rescue and admit from the city each year. This would enable our small team of staff and volunteers to focus on providing quality care for Tallahassee's injured, sick, and orphaned wildlife, with the goal of returning as many as possible to the beautiful home that we all share. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. The next speaker is Pat Simmons, followed by Leslie Powell.
My name is Pat Simmons. I live at 3128 O'Brien Drive in Tallahassee, and this is St. Francis Part 2. We appreciate being given the time to make our presentations, and as you are aware, St. Francis does offer unique services that are not provided by any other organization, and we would like to maintain a relationship with the city. St. Francis is a proponent of individuals admiring as well as enjoying our wild neighbors. Our education side promotes doing so without direct contact unless aiding an injured animal. For this year, St. Francis requested $36,000, as noted in the packet, an amount it considers modest considering the loss of city funding in 2015 and the increase in the association's cost of doing business. St. Francis is aware of impending consolidation of animal control, which may alter municipal funding to our agency. Even so, we would like to help you understand our organization and make a case for this slight increase in funding. You may have heard through media outlets that the county at one point placed St. Francis in a category where its funding could be eliminated. The principal reason, we found out, was that some commissioners lacked information about St. Francis. At the second hearing, after answering their questions, and after a visit to our facility, St. Francis funding was maintained at its current level. I would like to extend the same invitation to this commission to come see our facility and learn more about our operations so you'll know how the city's funding is spent. The loss of city funding in 2015 put us in a deep hole, which we are still climbing out of. Budget adjustments are being made and new fundraising options are being considered to meet that as well as account for cost increases. In 2015, there was a difference of over 500 animal admissions and attempted rescues between the city and the county. There were 500 more in the city than in the county. Regarding rabies vector species, the city limits generates the greatest amount of potentially rabid or diseased animals, which St. Francis handles. In 2015, it was 101 more of them from the City of Tallahassee. Comparing funding from 2013 to 2016, the county has carried the greatest financial burden. This was pointed out by Commissioner Lindley at the last county budget hearing. Rehabilitating a wild animal which is picked up or is received is significantly more costly than euthanizing it, which in many cases is illegal. Costs include everything from recruiting, training, and retaining staff and volunteers to maintenance of our vehicles, grounds, and hospital, as well as purchasing medications. Even if an animal is too damaged on intake or does not fare well in rehab, it has to be humanely euthanized, which is still costly. There are other wildlife rehab agencies in our area, but none of them provide 24/7 pickups, and none are able to handle over the 2,500 animals a year that we do. St. Francis is an agency that helps prevent problems by avoiding the spread of zoonotic diseases that can be transmitted to you or to your pets. St. Francis serves as an adjunct service to city animal control, filling a void that they cannot legally or logistically provide. St. Francis also responds to others issues that animal control removal companies cannot.
Excuse me, your 3 minutes have expired.
I got like 2 more lines. We feel that St. Francis is a wonderfully low tax burden considering all the services that we're able to provide to the citizens of Tallahassee, and respectfully request that you approve the funding amount of $36,000 for fiscal year 2007. Done.
Thank you.
Good job. The next speaker is Leslie Powell, and then LaShawn Gordon.
Good evening, Commissioners, Mayor. My name is Leslie Powell. I'm the Deputy Director of Legal Services in North Florida. You may have heard from Chris Knapp earlier today, and she sends her regards. Last year, you were able to provide us $50,000 to increase legal services to the citizens and residents in Tallahassee. I've met with a few of you requesting that you renew that line item, and hope to meet with the rest of you soon so that we can discuss the proposal and its importance to the health, safety, reduction of crime, employment, and overall benefit of Tallahassee. Victims of domestic violence are 2.5 times as likely to get a protective order when represented by an attorney, leading to reductions in costs to the criminal justice system, social service programs, emergency rooms and other medical providers, and the long-term negative effects on children. In 2010, Florida Tax Watch found direct return on investment of $4.78 for every dollar invested in legal services, More recent data from the National Legal Aid and Defender Association reflects a return of investment of $15.54 for every dollar invested in legal aid. A recent pilot project assessing the effects of having an attorney in eviction cases showed that full representation allowed more than 2/3 of the tenants to avoid the destabilizing consequences of eviction, where it was only 1/3 when they went unrepresented. This prevents homelessness. In addition, represented tenants received 5 times the financial benefits in damages and cancellation of past due rent. Recent studies also found that civil legal inequities act as a significant predictor of health inequities in our communities, with civil legal services plausibly improving the health and well-being of individuals, and particularly that of low-income individuals. The renewal of funds requested is critical to our community and to us in maintaining traction in the good that we're doing in Tallahassee. During the first quarter of the year, more than 1,000 city residents received help. 35% of them were above the age of 55. We increase income, decrease debt, secure stable, affordable housing, and provide for individual and community safety, while at the same time reducing recidivism rates for those who are reentering into our community. In sum, the solutions we provide are long-term, and access to justice is fundamental to our country's core beliefs. It is foundational to all that we do, including the proper functioning of government. Housing is important, yet if provided without a foundation of justice, people are still unsheltered. Food is important, but done without justice, people will still be hungry. Equity requires justice, and I ask that you renew the request for $50,000 for the upcoming fiscal year, and I'd be happy to answer any questions if y'all have them later, and I look forward to seeing those I haven't seen. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is LaShawn Gordon and then Douglas Martin.
Greetings, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners. My name is LaShawn Gordon. I reside at 2655 Fairmont Lane. I am the Program Director at Pace Center for Girls here in Tallahassee. And my reason for being here tonight is we stand with the Palmer Monroe Teen Center. They are one of our #1 partners. I've spent the last 15 years of my life working with what I consider at-promise teenagers. The world say at risk. I say at promise because they're full of promise. And I actually spent a lot of time there. And the center provides for kids that may not necessarily fit in anywhere else, a safe place and a place to feel like they are family. And so we would hate to see any funding being reduced, because it's critical that all those programs remain there. It's one thing when you have programs, but it's another thing when you have gender-specific programming, as well as programming for those kids who are not into the traditional things. And I've witnessed the staff take kids home in the evening times. I've witnessed families come in and be provided with the items that they need. And so we just want to impress upon you all that this is the Palmer Monroe Teen Center is a great place. It's a safe place, and it's family to many of the kids who live in very hard situations. Thank you.
Thank you. Douglas Martin, and followed by, I believe it's Arnie Vincent. Last name is Vincent.
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, Mr. Fernandez, my name is Doug Martin. I'm at 1312 Nancy Drive. I'm on the Board of Directors of the Indian Head Lehigh Neighborhood Association, and also serve with other organizations. That's a neighborhood on the south side of Tallahassee. Thank you for having this hearing on the south side of Tallahassee. And we support maintaining the ad valorem rate that you set last year. You took a very important stand at that time because we needed to add additional police officers according to our law enforcement leaders. And on the south side, we have had a crime problem that has been, frankly, a black eye for the city of Tallahassee in its efforts to promote this community. This is an extremely exciting time in Tallahassee. So many projects are happening now that have been worked on for so long, a lot of redevelopments taking place. However, our efforts to move forward as a city as a whole are going to be ineffective if all of the city does not share in that. The city has taken a comprehensive approach, including increased public safety, but also, if you've heard speakers, and many of the commissioners have gotten involved with efforts in terms of community schools, ex-offender programs, and other programs in the community. Police officers take, and increased staff take recurring revenue, steady revenue that you know is going to be there year after year, rather than just shifting funds year after year. Also, programs that you may want to set in place, such as the ex-offender program, it would be helpful if they knew that they were going to have a source of funding that was going to be there, rather than it being $50,000 this year or $0 next year. So we would ask that you maintain the strategy that you've put in place, because ultimately it's going to yield effects where we have lower crime and we have a better quality of life on the south side, and the entire city will benefit from that investment. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Ann Vinson, followed by Lily Walls.
Thank you for once again having me here. I'm Ann Vinson, Ann Monroe Vinson. I live at 3188 Brockton Way, and I stood before you 6 years ago. At that time, we were trying to get the teen center off ground. We did, thanks to you. And so this year, as I stand here, I am once again saying, please help us. We are proven, we know what is happening at that center. I have stayed involved because I wanted to make sure that not only I believed in what was being accomplished there, but also that we were spending our tax dollars well. And I assure you, they are well spent. I spoke with a policeman some years ago, and he said, if we can just get the kids off the street, this is what we're doing there. That money is going towards kids learning to respect, they're safe, there are programs there which help them deal with everyday problems that otherwise they would not have a person to go to, a mentor. I encourage you, please, to help us continually. The one last thing I'd like to say as I've thought about this, I wish that somehow we could also be a permanent part of the budget, because in my mind, the time that it takes to try to find funding is taking some of our people away from providing what our teens need. The teens are happy there, they've got a place, and they're loved, and they know it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next speaker is Lily Walls, and following her will be Kalia Henson and Keldrick Clayton.
Hi, my name is Lily Wells. I live at 2516 Patsy Ann Lane, 32303. I'm here to voice my support for the Palmer Monroe Teen Center. I work in substance abuse and mental health prevention with a focus on early childhood. But the programs and services provided through Palmer Monroe are vital to building stronger communities and supporting the health and well-being of Tallahassee youth. Tallahassee has prioritized reducing violence and crime, as well as making this the best community for children and families to grow. The work of the Palmer Monroe Teen Center in restorative justice and leadership and personal development is indispensable to accomplishing these goals. As a member of the Tallahassee community and as a homeowner, I'm invested in the well-being of youth in our city, and I'm here to ensure that you know how important that investment is to me. I ask the Commission to prioritize funding and permanency for the Palmer Monroe Teen Center as you finalize the fiscal year 2017 budget, so that these youth can be wholly supported as they seek to fulfill the promise of their potential. Thank you.
Thank you. Kalia Henson and Keldrick Clayton. Following these two will be Edward Holyfield.
Hi, my name is Kalia Hansen, and I'm here beyond the Palmer Teen Center for funding for 2017. I feel that Palmer has many different qualities than any other center has, like many other programs. It's a program crop where kids like us can go get scholarships from TCC because some parents might not have the funding for scholarships. There's also community connections for students with, like anger and ways to just express themselves without violence. Then you also have girls group, boys group, teens that get to go hang out, tutoring. Is many different values and experiences for students and kids who usually don't fit in with general population, like basketball, sports, any of that. They can come here, play games, and we have a lot of different activities for them to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Edward Holyfield is the next speaker, and then Gary Montgomery.
Ed Holyfield, Longleaf Court. "25% of black pregnant females receive no prenatal care during the first trimester of pregnancy. I repeat, 25% of black pregnant females receive no prenatal care during the first trimester of pregnancy. Now, I'm sure the chamber doesn't care about that. Some of you probably don't care about it. But it was better 5 years ago. So in this all-America city, we're actually going backwards. Life expectancy in Leon County is going down relative to other counties. Life expectancy relative to other counties in the state, the 67 other counties, according to Robert Wood Johnson, we're going backwards. It was better 5 years ago. And what do y'all spend all of the money on? Basically, you spend money on things to make rich people richer. Look at the CRA. You talk about property taxes. You gave DoubleTree Hotel almost $1 million. And then look at these organizations that are struggling to keep people alive, like Neighborhood Health. Between the year 2000 and 2015, the city charged Neighborhood Health more than $400,000 in rent for the use of those dilapidated buildings. $400,000, you should refund that money. By comparison, TMH is rich and powerful. You've been letting them use $6 million worth of land at $1 a year since 1979. While TMH turns around and pays Marco Bryant more than $1 million a year. What's going on here? There's no equity here. There's no fairness here. There's no all-America city here. That's a hoax. That's a joke. No, it's really not all that funny, because people at the bottom continue to suffer. They suffer in regard to health outcomes. Again, getting worse. They suffer in regard to just about every quality measure of life you can look at. And yet, you know, the band plays on. So I'm saying that you need to revisit your whole approach. This thing about black infant mortality is getting worse.
Excuse me, your 3 minutes have expired.
I'm going to continue. You need to hear what I'm saying. The budget has never earmarked black infant mortality as a specific budget item. It's never happened. You know, you earmarked the Red Hills horse trials. You know, county gave them $90,000 last year. The animals are taken care of, the horses are taken care of, but yet, when it comes to things that are literally killing people, you're perfectly comfortable looking the other way. If you can give TMH that $6 million worth of land and only charge them $1 a year, then you can do the same thing for neighborhood health.
Thank you, Dr. Holyfield.
What explains the discrepancy?
Dr. Holyfield.
Is this just vintage Tallahassee racism on steroids?
Thank you, Dr. Holyfield.
You need to do the same for neighborhood health
Appreciate
that you do for TMH.
Thank you, sir.
And their CEO, I guarantee you, doesn't get $1 million a year.
Thank you, Dr. Holyfield. Next speaker.
Next speaker is Gary Montgomery, and he'll be followed by Stanley Sims. As Mr. Montgomery approaches, Mayor, we had a speaker form from Krista Hosmer, who's waived her time to speak. I believe was going to be in support of the Animal Services Center.
Greetings. Pastor Gary Montgomery, founder of Livingstones International, a children and family social service agency servicing children with an incarcerated parent. I'm here today from the address of 1341 Cross Creek. I got several addresses, praise God. But I just wanted to acknowledge and thank the mayor for the Children's Week last week, bringing in also some of the citizens who brought to light a lot of issues and a lot of concerns that still need to be addressed. I also want to personally thank Commissioner Richardson for coming to our 4th annual Family Fun Day and opening it up for us. I also want to thank Ms. Ashley Edwards and Aisha McQueen, who's executive director of this center, because just Saturday we were here having our Family Fun Day, and there was over 1,400 people who attended, and I judge that because that's how many hot dogs we put out there. But I just wanted to bring to light our Children of Inmate program, because 70% of children who have an incarcerated parent, they too will be incarcerated within their lifetime. In Department of Corrections Region 1, there's over 14,000 children who have a parent that's incarcerated. Here in Leon County, there's over 2,000 children who have an incarcerated parent. Our evidence-based program here in Leon, we grew 4 years ago from 8 children to now over 300 that we arrange special bonding visits for them to connect with their mothers, their fathers, and their grandparents. And we also provide case management to the caregivers and the children. At the same time, we go into prison to work with the parents to help them with communication skills and nurturing skills, because some of these parents and some of these children haven't seen their parents in like 10, 15, 16 years, even down to 2 years. So I just wanted to just say thank you and for our continued support of the Promise Zone funding. That's very needed and necessary. Also continued support for CHSP and United Way. We are proud to be a recipient of those grants that's helping our after-school program. We're touching 26 children right now who has a parent who's incarcerated, and their grades have turned, all of them in our after-school program passed to go to the next level and also passed all the standardized tests. They're less angry, they're less frustrated because they're able to connect with their loved one in prison. When a child sees their mom and dad, even though they might have a blue outfit on because we service the state prison, it's not about the outfit. That's my dad, that's my mom. And it's the unconditional love that Christ has for us that the child has for the parent. So I just ask for continued support for our programs. Tallahassee, for the last 4 years, have supported us through our Family Fun Days and has grown. Like I say, that has started about 600, and now we're touching over 1,400 kids. And what's so awesome is that the men and women who were incarcerated, who are in our program, who are now on the street right now, they were there with their children and connecting. And we're just so thankful that we are a portal for men and women who are coming out of prison to stop by the Living Stones so we can help them start a business, start a ministry.
Excuse me, your 3 minutes have expired.
Well, I just want to thank you for the opportunity to be here today, because Tallahassee's all right with me.
Thank you. Livingstone's is a recipient of the Promise-On money, as Pastor indicated, but I didn't want that statistic to go unnoticed, that the state's research shows that 70% of children who have incarcerated parents go on to become incarcerated themselves. 2,000 of them in Leon County, which means 1,400 of them, but for some program that interrupts the cycle, will themselves find themselves incarcerated over the course of their lives. And so just can underscore the importance of these programs that have metrics-based outcomes that start to disrupt that cycle. So thank you for your work.
Next speaker is Stanley Sims, and Mayor, that's the last speaker for whom I have a form.
Good evening, Mayor and fellow commissioners and city officials. My name is Stanley Sims. I'm at 1320 Avondale Way. I heard the slogan one time, taxation without representation, and I'm a victim of that. The way I'm a victim of, let me correct that. My 17-year-old son is a victim of that, because we pay utilities, we contribute to this budget, and I've been fighting this because I was a part when Mr. Thompson started with the Booker T. Washington program, and he partnered with the City of Tallahassee and allowed children to have summer jobs. But because of my address, my child cannot partake into the city's summer program, and I think that's a tragedy, because I think that children is not an area where we should draw geographical lines, especially when the kids in the summer program in the county, they can apply for the city summer youth program as well as the county program, but the kids that live in the county can apply for the summer program. That's one issue that I would like to bring up and put on public record. My second issue of concern is I'm very concerned in the new direction that we've gone. When we look at the top 10% of city officials, of those making over $100,000, those salaries are very high, and they don't go through the scrutiny of a job interview. They don't be advertised. They're not tested. But we take our people who are little customer service representatives, we vet them very hardly. And so I just like that we just try to look at the equity of how we're doing and how we are, the pay scale of our people. We took back that 1%. 1% when you're making over 100 grand, that's not much. You probably could swallow that. In a matter of disclosure, my wife works for the city. That 1% hurt us. So now we have downgraded from a sweet potato to a white potato. You know what I mean? So it's very important that you understand that those guys that are on the streets that are cleaning and fixing potholes, they're important. And I think they should be our first line of defense when we're making budget decisions and taking care of. I think that the city of Tallahassee is the best major employer in this all-American city, Mayor. And I pray that you take my remarks and corrective criticism. I'm not bitter, I'm not angry. I love this city. I'll fight for this city and have fought for this city. My last and final thing is, I'm very happy, Mr. City Manager, that you are bringing these hearings back in a predominantly black community. That gives us another opportunity to have access and to voice our opinion. And so I don't want to leave on a bitter note. I do want to applaud you for changing the budget structure so that we can have better input into this matter. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you very much. Commissioner
Well,
Miller?
thank you, Mr. Sims, Reverend Sims. Thank you very much, because you brought something up that I would like to mention and get on the record. We had, in the past year or two ago, we had a raise, but we said that there would be a minimum. In other words, nobody got less than a $1,000 raise. So even if 1% of your salary turned out to be less than that, then, or 2% or whatever, then that person did get, in fact, at least a $1,000 a year raise. So I would hope that we could all agree that that would be a good idea to do that this time. So if you could look at that and get back to us and see if that's a possibility. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Miller, for putting the sweet potato back on the table.
I believe that was a final comment. I want to thank everyone who came to give public testimony, and obviously everyone who is in attendance. We'll now move on to budget presentation from our city manager and our budget staff. Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners. Thanks everyone coming out, giving testimony or not. We're very pleased to be here tonight and walk forward. It wasn't my idea, it was the City Commission idea. We just facilitated it, and it's an honor to be here. Played a lot of basketball on this court. I embarrassed a lot of people on this court.
By how bad he played?
Your wife, your kids.
Did they lower the baskets? I'm joined here tonight by the executive team, the budget staff, and other city staff. We would be able to answer any questions that you may put forward. I would like to thank you for your leadership through this process, and just in general for the guidance that you provide me and the staff in providing services to our citizens. I also would like to thank the staff for their support, being creative, being flexible, to identify new ways to improve the services we provide while finding operational efficiencies and savings and lowering the budget. It goes without saying, the budget is the platform, the plan for our annual operations for the next year, and provides a strategic direction for the city's future. Over the last 6 months, you have provided guidance to us and direction on key budget assumptions, engaged the public, heard the viewpoints of many, and received numerous updates. We as staff have also surveyed our citizens about their priorities. I will discuss the results in a moment, but the citizens' top priorities for sure are clear: public safety and roads. It is, of course, important to evaluate the cost of living. We have developed, during this budget cycle, a tool to best compare the cost of municipal services with other communities. While we're not the lowest, I believe our review found our cost to be very, very reasonable. You have always insisted on operating a professional government that is fiscally responsible and stable. Your leadership of the utilities and your other businesses reflect that. Most importantly, you have always reflected the spirit of Tallahassee. We have, as you know, always fussed about our fiscal responsibility, our reserves, making sure that we leave this better for the next generation, and we are financially viable and strong. Our citizens are known for being forward-thinking, caring for their neighbors, and for sure loving their trees and engaging their local governments, as you can see tonight. This year, you have held more public discussions about the budget than any year in recent memory. You asked that tonight's workshop be scheduled in a convenient location that would be more accessible to the public and further encourage participation. I think Walker Ford, being in the heart of the Bond community, is a perfect venue. During my time with the city, I can think of many great evenings spent at this place. I would like to thank everyone that is here to participate and share your thoughts about the budget. At this time, I would like to provide you a presentation of the proposed budget. I encourage you to stop me and ask questions on points of interest or areas where you'd like more discussion. Let's begin with the highlights. We engage the public through engagement and peer review. We made presentation to numerous groups. I made myself available to anyone that would call. If I couldn't make it, one of the executive team or the staff participated. It was engaging. It was instructional. And each group that we spoke to, we asked them to sort of provide themselves for a survey. So every group that we spoke to, we sent them a survey, and they shared with their members on an email, and we got good results and feedback that I will share with you. In addition, we went through a peer review by professionals in the financial field across the country. They came in, it was painful. They gave us great guidance over a weekend. They spent meeting with all members of the community. Every sector of the community was represented in their interviews, and they went through the process that we use and gave us some really, really valuable information and guidelines. Overall, they thought we did a decent job. We were great in our communication, and one of the recommendations was that we concentrate on the general fund. They thought that as a government, we spent a lot less time on the general fund than we should, since that is the one area that provides the most direct services to our citizens and is funded by taxes. We did the survey that I spoke about with the groups that we spoke to as an executive team. We also did an online survey and also did a statistically valid telephone survey. In addition to that, we went and procured a OpenGov, which is a transparency tool where every citizen can go on our website and look at our financial information and drill down to whatever level they want. It is getting wide use. I'm getting great feedback on its usefulness, and actually some pretty interesting questions that we were never gotten before. I think the documents you have reflect OpenGov in that we're now able to drill down on a more concise level, since all the detail is online and available to every single citizen. We also met with a variety of special interest groups that everybody had their idea about how the process should work and what changes should be made. We met with all of them. I thought that the meetings were productive for the most part. And at the end, as with most special interest group, you agree to agree on certain things and you agree to disagree on other things. And obviously, at the end of the day, it's your job as the elected officials and the board of directors of this great organization to make the decisions. Early in the year, we went through a reorganization that had a lot of strategic value to it, I think long-term for the organization. Not something we were looking for, and not something that we are necessarily proud of, but we eliminated 10 senior management positions, which saved some money, but that was not our goal. Our goal was to gain efficiency and effectiveness, and I think this budget starts to show the benefits of the reorganization. The customer survey, the statistically valid customer survey, reflected again the two areas that are the most important to the community, that being roads and public safety. The municipal comparison, as you can see from what our budget has, numbers to you, $3.2 million reduction in the general fund, overall budget $5 million reduction. And what that allows us to do with the $3.2 million general fund reduction and the increase of about $1 million in property taxes, it gives you the opportunity to again go back and fund your capital program as it should be, in my opinion. Right now, we have $5 million in funding for your capital programs. Based on your input today, we will come back to you on July 13th with a capital program that reflects your direction today. One thing I can tell you is that we will have more projects than you can put money to it. Sure. In my opinion, we're way behind, and we'll catch up, shortly but slowly, or slowly but surely. You have also put forward $2 million for Community Human Services Partnership. One of the things that we did, like I told you before, we wanted to compare ourselves with other communities in the state of Florida. So there's a total of 12 communities up there in that chart. The red one indicates Tallahassee. Well, we're now the lowest. I would say that the bottom four are pretty bunched up, and we were happy when we got those results. We didn't know where we would be. We modified the standards this year to make it more accurate, in my opinion. So we used actual consumption for utility cost, and we used median values for residential costs. So basically, a residential cost in Tallahassee median value would be lower than it would be in Broward, but higher than in other communities. The way we developed this was to be as accurate as we could be. We're proud of where it is, and we will continue to modify this comparison to the extent that we need to. And of primary importance is that it includes all those costs that a residential customer would have in any community. Included in those is fire services fees, stormwater fees, and as you can see, some communities choose to fund their fire services fee through the general fund. Other communities like us have a special fee to recover those costs, and obviously it's sort of like a balloon where you squeeze and it comes out of the other end. It has to be funded. We will have a fire services department, and that has to be funded whether you do it through taxes or you do it through fees. I think the comparison ought to be, what's the bottom line? What does a customer pay? What does a citizen pay for an average house in Tallahassee using average utilities? And there you have it. I think you're in a good place. It reflects your leadership over the years, and we stand again by that comparison, and I think we have been asked to defend it, and we have, and I think satisfactorily. Flip it. Ah. He's trying. Okay. So through our survey, we received community feedback, and again, public safety came back at 54% interest, either number one or number two on our survey. Roadway maintenance replacement was second at 41%. Affordable housing came in third in the statistically valid survey at 30%. Parks and Recreation Program at 21%, and sidewalks and bike and pedestrian path improvements at 17%. So from those numbers, we can tell that public safety and roadway maintenance and replacement are by far the most interest to our community. Affordable housing, parks and rec, and sidewalks and bike and pedestrian path follow. Clearview Research conducted the research for us, sample of 400 residents. The sample was balanced by gender, race, and region, consistent and similar to the actual population. And 15% of those calls were made to cell phones. I would go through to the expenditure, since the OpenGov is not working. So I present to you your general fund expenditures. And to summarize it, the general fund, the expenditures are reduced by 3.2%, and again, your revenues overall increased by about 2.7. So together, that gives you the $5.9 million that you can use towards your capital program. I will go on the expenditure side. Just what you have in front of you are the schedules by general category, and personnel services is all those employee-related services, including salaries, including benefits, pension, and so forth. As you can see, that is by far the number one expenditure in your government at $84 million. Operating expenditures are for goods and services, supplies, and so forth. Internal service funds is the allocation of services provided by other funds that exist for the sole purpose of providing services internally. That would be your IT department, that would be your accounting department, that would be your audit department, and others. Utilities and other expenses, that's self-explanatory. Transfers of almost $11 million is primarily debt service. And as you look at the 5-year window, you see a bump in fiscal year 19 of about $1.3 million. That is an expected bond issue, if necessary, during the prior year. But over that, you can see that most expenses, operating expenses, are flat. And obviously, contributions to operations is Star Metro, CRA, and CDA. And again, all expenses are flat with the exception of personnel services in the 5-year window. We have assumed in the 5-year window in personnel a 2% increase across the board for every year, with the exception of the unionized employees. We've sort of assumed what has been historically 2 plus 4.5. On the revenue side, just for reference, taxes and franchise fees of $24 million for 17. That's primarily your public service tax and your communications taxes. Ad valorem taxes of $40 million is self-explanatory. That's your property tax. Licenses and permits, that's your business taxes, taxi fees, and so forth. Intergovernmental revenues are your sales tax from the state and revenue sharing. So basically that $19 million is sales tax money. Charges for services are your user fees for parks and recreation, including animal shelter adoption fees. As you can see, that's almost $900,000. Other revenues are your interest earnings and rentals of facilities and internal transfers from other funds. And your other sources are your utility transfers. I want to drill down a little bit on the police budget. That's your single largest budget of $55 million. The budget reflects full staffing of 33 new positions, $343,000 in overtime savings, and we're scheduled 15 more grant positions in 2018. Our expenses for all of those are reflected in this 5-year window. Start Metro, very proud of the work that they've done out of Star Metro. $1.6 million reduction in operating cost. We're looking at 12 routes with 8 route changes out of our 12 routes to respond to peak demand. $300,000 reduction in revenues is reflected in this budget on the FAMU agreement, and an equal amount on the expense side. So the net operating reduction is $1.3 million. This responds to commission and community priorities. Roads, sidewalks, and facilities. You can see some pictures up there that are not too pretty. We have 645 lanes of city streets, lane miles of city streets, and 503 sidewalk miles. In addition, we have 500 structures in 160 city sites. That's buildings, warehouses, and these sort of things. During 17, we will do an evaluation and assessment of the repair and maintenance needs with inspection programs And we will also bring facilities management, hopefully under one umbrella, to accomplish the master plan. We're going through the same process for city streets and sidewalks, especially concentrating on having a maintenance program that is planned and driven, rather than waiting for something to break before we assess it. Yes, ma'am.
When you say that you're consolidating all of this under facilities management, do you mean all of those city buildings?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Yes. And obviously, that's going to take a lot of work and scrubbing budgets and working through folks. And we're out, we'll be going out for an RFP, hopefully this fall, that would bring a firm in to be our partner in consolidating all the data and making sure that we have a central control system to make sure we can monitor every facility that we have within reason. Or every major facility.
Since I've interrupted the
Yeah,
flow.
please.
A few years ago, several years ago, we had a road conditions index workshop. And I think that since, I know the two of us were here and Commissioner Ziffel was here, but probably that was before Commissioner Maddox and Commissioner Richardson were on the board. And it probably would be nice to have a repeat of that so we can update the information and just explain to the public. For example, we had a speaker who referenced that we didn't need more than $250,000 a year to take care of this, and I think that that will help people to understand why this is a critical area for spending money. So if we could put that in your workshop, Quay, that'd be great.
We will do, thank you. And we will do the same thing for the streets and sidewalks, once we've hammered out those programs. If I may, just take a few minutes on the citywide operating budget. And again, this is 14 different businesses that you run. I know we've had concentration on the general fund, but this is what you're over $700 million that you provide guidance to and policy direction. We almost each one of these is treated in its own way based on generally accepted accounting principles, and it's not, you establish the policies by which money, the citizens get a return on their investment, especially from the enterprise funds, by your transfer policies. Sometimes you'd hear, well, you know, why don't you just take a little bit of money from this one and put it over there and that one and over here? Obviously, that would create a problem for you with the auditors, for us with the auditors, and just in general as good practice. Each one of these, some are treated on an accrual basis, some are treated on a cash basis, but overall you have a strong record of setting your policies and changing them when you need. I mean, we went through a stretch there for like 4 years where we changed the transfer policy every year to meet the changing environment. I think we're in a pretty good place right now. I think you've established a number and then it increases by CPI, and it has so far, I think, provided the basis for the government to function in an effective way. And for that, I thank you, and I think everybody thanks you, and the community should thank you. So overall, the $700 million budget is down from $706 million, so it's a reduction of $5 million in the citywide operating budget. As you can see, just to highlight, it's nearly a 10% reduction in Star Metro. I will let you know that during 17, we expect a rate study for water and sewer. There's some pressure there from, we don't know what the outcome is going to be, but there is some pressure on the capital side, being able to transfer the amount of money that we have as a policy into RR&I, which obviously is used as cash for future capital programs. We're undergoing right now a rate study in solid waste. If you remember last year, you lowered the rates in solid waste by, I believe it was 5%, and it was set for a 1-year reduction to sort of eat up into the reserve that we had built that we thought were too high. So we expect this rate study to be done within a month or so, and we'll let you know what the outcome is. Our solid waste commercial rates, just as an aside, is one of the lowest in the state. It's definitely by far the lowest in this region. If you have a business in Tallahassee and you have a business in the unincorporated area, it is not unusual for your commercial garbage fee within Tallahassee to be 1/2 what it is outside the city. And your folks at Solid Waste have done a wonderful job of keeping efficient operations while having high rankings and ratings with the customers. A couple of items that are here for your action, and I want to thank the folks from the Teen Center for being here and showing that passion. One of them is we have in this budget a $180,000 contribution from Leon County for the Teen Center based on a prior agreement which expired with this year. We put it in there as a placeholder, hoping that they would re-up that commitment, but they chose not to. So we need direction on how to fund that $180,000, or whether we should provide some. We've done some analysis, but we could bring you back some further analysis on your July 13 meeting. We're recommending that the city continue the partnership with Village Square. That's in this budget at $20,000. That's the second item. The third item is you received the email yesterday from the city attorney that he has requested a budget increase of $132,000. And then finally, the item that the Chamber of Commerce spoke about today, they've asked in a letter to me, which I have since forwarded to you, they've asked us to repeal the business license tax as part of the fiscal year 17 annual budget. That's a $2 million ask, and it applies to approximately 12,000 businesses and professionals. The next steps are our July 13 budget workshop, which we would bring back to you any items you give us direction on today, and the capital budget. At that meeting, you will approve the tentative millage rate for this year, and then that would be followed in September 14th and 28th by public hearings and budget plan adoption. With that, Mr. Mayor, I turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Manager, for that thorough presentation. Commissioners, we can go down the row and identify folks' areas for flags or for questions or follow-up. And I'm hoping maybe as we do that, we can hear feedback from folks on these issues that have already been highlighted by staff that is enumerated on, I don't know what page it is of the slide, but it's a slide that has the Palmer Monroe Teen Center photograph on it. And obviously you can feel free to raise any additional flags that you may have. Anybody want to get us started, or? I don't know. Go ahead.
I'll get us started, but I may think of something else and you'll have to come back to me.
Sure, reserve that right.
All right. Well, first of all, I wanted to say congratulations for the attention that you're putting on the roadway and street maintenance programs finally. I'm very, very, very happy. I think the chart that was included in the budget documents that show how at one point it was $7 million a year on average, and the last 4 years it's been $100,000 per year. So you can't maintain our road system on $100,000 a year, and I'm appreciative of the fact that you recognize that and you've really looked for ways to put money back into that program. That said, we do have several things before us tonight that we'll be having conversations about that will, I'm sure, eat into that 5.9 million. And in response to that, I'd like to ask for you to consider a couple things. One is that so far in the past few years, several years, whenever property was sold, the policy dictated that that went back into the deficiencies fund. And I think that I'd like to ask us to consider, and since the deficiencies fund is at the policy level now, I'd like to consider when we have a property sale, putting it here on capital, the general government capital projects fund, to begin to get us some impetus moving forward. Like you said, you've got plenty of work to fund. So that's the first thing that I'd like to ask you all to think about doing. And with that said, there are a couple things. I know that we've had a discussion here about health care and the folks that go without health care, and I would like for you all to, I understand that's a county responsibility, and that we have our responsibilities, and that particular thing is county, and so it's not that I don't, when I make suggestions about some things that I'd like to see funded, I do recognize the need. I just know that we have job descriptions, and they have job descriptions, and the state has job descriptions, and we have to be keeping an eye on our own job descriptions. Palmer Monroe is very important to me. I hope you can figure out a way and come back with some suggestions as to how we can make up this $180,000 deficit. I think that you have St. Francis in the budget already. Is that correct? And finally, I'd like to mention, yet again, the downtown trolley system during the day, and the staff last year analyzed that and said it was going to be about $150,000 to run 5 buses from the fall when the committee meetings start and through the legislative session. So I'd like to ask for that again. That was coupled with the fact that I got an email from the new director from the Downtown Improvement Authority, Paige Carter-Smith, today, and she had done some analysis through talks with Star Metro, and basically she was coming up with $25,000 a trolley times 5 is about the same as it was last year. So if you guys could look into that, I'd appreciate that very much. And with that, I'll yield the floor to someone else.
Commissioner Ziffer.
Sure. After listening to 15 to 20 or so folks come before us, it's interesting, and maybe it's coincidental, could be, but many of the comments that were made are probably all items that we all have very deep convictions for and support of, or in some cases maybe not, we'll see. But I did want to make very clear, because my former colleague Mark Mushton used to do this every time about this time of year, reminding people that if you live in the city of Tallahassee, you also live in Leon County. And if you live in the city of Tallahassee, you are paying city of Tallahassee real estate taxes, but you are also paying ad valorem taxes to Leon County. And so, and the school board. But if there are services that the city offers, quite frankly, you are also paying money to the county. And that's why in some cases they should be offering similar services also. And so I'm glad that they stepped up when it came to St. Francis, because quite frankly, people are paying taxes to Leon County for those services as well. We do have from time to time though, unspoken agreements with the county where they do some things and we do other things. But I do have one question. Well, actually several comments, but I have a question. How much does neighborhood pay us for the Lincoln Center annually? Just, does anybody know off the top of their head? Because whatever it is, I would like us to consider perhaps doing something similar that we do have with TMH. Neighborhood offers us some invaluable services clearly, and there are a lot of individuals in our city that are not taking advantage of the potential health care that's available to them. And I would like neighborhood to be able to find as good a financial position as possible to provide those services. So if there's something we can do on rent relief, I'd certainly like us to consider that. Couple of other thoughts. Palmer Monroe. This is a great example of trying to do something about crime in this city, not through law enforcement, but through having opportunities for young people to be in a safe environment, an environment that's healthy for them, and not to mention the recidivism reduction that we have as a result of the Palm Monroe Center is worthy of that initial additional dollar. So from my standpoint, it's worth it for us, at least for the coming year, to find that $180,000. Now, I will say, and Mayor, you and I, over the years, have been very supportive, as is Commissioner Miller and others, but there's got to be some way we can start to find more grant funding or for other funding for that. It is invaluable, and I think we need to find a way to support it. But continuing to pay the $360,000 on our own is not something that can go on terribly long. The business tax I am in support of. Somebody asked me, and it is a curious thought, and that is clearly we want to give money back to our local business. I am curious, though, how many are out-of-town businesses that we would be reducing that fund to. So if we could, I don't know if that's available, but I'd be interested in that. But I am supportive of doing whatever we can to not only put money back in the hands of our business owners, but also send that message that we are open for business, and it's important for us to do whatever we can from an economic development standpoint. The capital fund, clearly, City Manager, you mentioned to us that if we agreed with the $5 million plus, I think you said that at the next meeting we would have a better idea of where we would actually spend that. Okay, that's important to me. Star Metro, clearly we're talking about a reduction in some service lines. Just as long as we, if anything, can improve service to those folks that need it the most, we as a community, as a city, as a strong and vibrant city, need to recognize that some folks don't have the transportation that others do, and we need to do whatever we can to make that transportation, if not the same, but more readily available. So whatever we can do in looking at our different service areas, I would be in favor of that. And I think, oh, and one more. Legal aid. I know we did $50,000 last year, and your services are invaluable, and I hate to sound like somebody that's continuing to try to give money away, but this is another one of those that we're trying to support, and we did last year an organization that did invaluable things for other people that just couldn't have that kind of legal help. So I'd be in favor of trying to find that funding again this year. And last year we said it needed to be the final year, but this is one of those things where it is a need, and I would like to try to meet it. And on that, those are my comments.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Richardson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I too want to thank my colleagues on the commission and the city manager for agreeing to have this public hearing here at Walker Ford in a part of the community that typically does not have the opportunity to give us feedback on this type of issue when it comes to how we build our budget and where we spend our resources. And so I'm glad that we are here. And, you know, the one thing that I want to point out is that all of us are citizens of this community. Some have lived here longer than others. Some have grown up in Tallahassee. But we're all citizens of this community. We all pay taxes. So it's not like we get some kind of tax exemption because we're city commissioners. We pay the same, and we wrestle with, when we put this budget together, we wrestle with all of the demands that are asked of the city budget. You all have heard some of those tonight. Some of them you haven't. And we know that this community requires quality services, efficient and effective services in terms of parks and recreation and public safety and all of the other programs and services that the Parks and Rec that the city provides. And so these are decisions that we don't take lightly when we go through this process. How do we have to balance all of the demands that come before us with the revenue that we have available to us. And I commend this commission. During recessionary times, they held the line. They even in some instances reduced the millage rate because they were aware then of the need to give relief to the tax-paying citizens, to us, to all of us in this community. And now that we see the economy start to improve, there are some areas that were neglected some areas, for instance, our capital project, some of our funds that were dangerously low. We're having to take a look at replenishing those funds. Our bond rating agencies were looking at us with some suspect because some of those funds were being allowed to be depleted, and we were using some of those non-recurring revenues over the years to fund our recurring general budget. And so I applaud and commend my colleagues for the decisions that they made during that time. But here we are now, and I think we're in a good place. You've heard some of the good things that the manager has done to streamline the organization, to bring about some efficiencies and savings as a side note in the organization. And so I think we're in a good place, and we're looking now, rather than just a year-to-year budget, we're trying to project out 5 years so that we can give residents some, I don't know quite the word to use, but that there is some consistency, I guess, in our budget, and that we're trying to live within our means. And this year's budget, I think, reflects that. There is no recommendation of an increase in the millage rate in this budget. There actually is a decrease in the budget from last year to this year, as reflected in what's being proposed by the city manager. So I just wanted to put those remarks out there because, you know, you're going to hear a lot from other folk that we've got all this money that we're mismanaging and misspending, and we need to give money back to the citizens. It's not the government's money. And like I said, we're citizens. I pay property taxes. I have no problem with the property taxes I pay and my family pays for the programs and services that we're provided in the city of Tallahassee. Curtis Richardson and his family have no problem with that. And I would support that if I were not sitting in this position even. So with that being said, there are some things that, and I think we do have some agreement, at least up to this point. The Palmer Monroe Teen Center, I think that's essential to this community. What we do to proactively address the crime issue in terms of working with our young people, we can't do enough of that. I wish we had more Palmer Monroe Teen Centers in other areas of the community that our young people could access. So I certainly support that. The request from the legal department, and I don't know, Mr. Mayor, if our city attorney is going to make a presentation, but I certainly want us to consider. I think he made a pretty compelling case in his letter to us in terms of the needs of his office, so we certainly should take a look at that. You know, this is now the second or third year that Tallahassee has been identified as one of the highest crime rate cities in the state, if not in the southeastern region. Our response to that, part of our response to that has been to hire additional police officers, and certainly that's appropriate. But when you continue to hear about the violent crimes that are occurring in this community, we've got to do something different. There's got to be more of a sense of urgency to addressing those issues in this community and where they occur. You know, we have heard reports, we've sent people to Chicago to hear about the Cure Violence model, but we seem to have hit a wall somewhere. And we got to a point, but we've gotten no further in implementing, or at least given us the chance to implement that model, at least on a trial basis, to see how it works or would work in some of our areas where crime, and we know where they are, we know who's the perpetrators of the crime, we know who the victims of the crimes are, we know the neighborhoods where those crimes are being committed, and we have just got to have more of a sense of urgency in addressing this issue and try something different than just trying to lock up the criminals. And so I want to see us move forward in supporting the cure violence model that we've spent so much money on now investigating, and let us do something different in this city to address the crime issue. Along with that, the reentry program, I think the case has been made that when these men and women come out of our prisons throughout the state, thousands that will be coming back to Tallahassee and Leon County, if we don't have something in place for them and their families, we know what the recidivism rates are going to be. We know that they're going to return to a life of crime in order to survive. And so I would like to see us consider funding I think it was $125,000, Lucretia, for the reentry program that as a part of our comprehensive approach to addressing crime in the community. I agree with Commissioner Ziffer on the business tax and reduce. I pay that. I've got a little consulting business, Commissioner Ziffer, that I've had for a while, and I pay that business tax every year. And so I would like to see us consider that, maybe not all in one fell swoop this year, but maybe a phase out over 2 years. And Mr. Manager, I don't know if the ask has been to eliminate the tax altogether, or just for this or the next fiscal year, or just to eliminate it altogether?
The ask was to eliminate.
Okay. And so I mean, I would like for us to take a look at that, but maybe not in one fell swoop, but maybe a gradual elimination of it over 2 or 3 years, so that, and then what I'd like for us to do is look at how that will impact the overall budget. Because if we're talking about eliminating almost $2 million, certainly something is going to have to be sacrificed in that budget if we do that. And so if you could come back to us with some recommendations of how we might be able to accomplish that, but certainly keeping in mind that something would have to be sacrificed. And then lastly, I'd like for us, when we talk about capital projects, as a result of the ULI report, it called for sidewalks on Putnam and Polk Streets in South City. And so I would like to ask that we make those priority projects, as well as projects on Shamrock in Killearn that have been asked for. I've had a number of citizens from that community talk to me about the need for sidewalks in the Killearn area and the improvement of sidewalks in that area. So I'd like for those 3 to be put at the top of the list for capital projects when that comes back to us. And then I said finally, but one more is a consideration of funding for the Big Bend Minority Chamber and their request to assist small minority and women-owned businesses in our community as a part of our economic development strategy going forward. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Maddox.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, I guess we're not going to debate each one of these things today. What we're doing is just flagging issues, having them come back. Okay. Just 2 or 3 highlights for me. One, I've been approached by many folks due to my opposition of the property tax increase in last year's budget to bring that back up for repeal this year. I do not think that when one belongs to a collegial body that you should fight present year battles on last year's results. So I will not do that. This body spoke on that, and I respect the decision of the body, and I do that in all other decisions as well. So I won't be bringing that forward. The business tax, it used to be called an occupational license, and I pushed to change it from occupational license to business tax because it gives license to no one. There's no process by which you get a license. A license gives you the connotation that somehow you've passed a test. This was just used as a mechanism to tax, and it was a taxing mechanism available to municipalities through the legislature, and one we took advantage of for many years. I thought that at least we should have truth in taxing by calling it what it is, which is a business tax. Philosophically, I'm fine with doing away with the business tax and would in fact advocate for that because I think it sends the wrong message that you pay for the privilege of doing business. The people that are in business in our community already pay so many other taxes. So they pay, their property tax, they pay their sales tax, they pay, of course, income tax like we all do. I don't understand the philosophy behind, for the privilege of going into business for yourself rather than working for someone else, you must pay an additional amount to the government. I'm all for rendering unto Caesar what is Caesar's, but I just, philosophically, I'm okay with getting rid of that tax. However, all the comments I've heard so far has been adding on to spending. So I want to wait till we get down to the nitty-gritty of getting out our pocket calculators, which I tried to do a little bit of that while I've been sitting up here, to see if we can balance the budget before we knock off $1.8 million worth of recurring revenue. So I'd like to see that item come back. Other than that, I just want to make the global comment of, I think that transparency is always best. When you lay your cards on the table, and especially when it comes to taxation, especially when it comes to budgeting for governments. This process has been very transparent. And even those that disagree with the outcome cannot disagree with the process. So, Mr. Manager, thank you for bringing forth a transparent process that everyone can take part in. Over the next several weeks, we'll deliberate and we'll hear a lot of back and forth, and we'll continue to reach out to the public, and we'll come up with a product that I think will be good for our community. And while we don't always agree on this body, one thing I think everyone can agree with is we've got a pretty neat city. We've got a great city, and it offers a lot of great services, and a lot of people are dependent upon them. And while we have our disagreements on particulars on which dollars should be spent in which place, we can look back over 50 years and longer and know that we have a scandal-free government. We have one that balanced a budget every year, that we pay our bills, and that we provide crucial services to our citizens. So I'm excited about this process, and I think we'll have a good result.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioners, I just want to weigh in on a couple of these. I want to echo the congratulations and real appreciation to the staff for the kind of budget process you all have run this cycle. Yes, there are a lot of voices out there. I don't think anybody who's paid any bit of attention up to this point could, with a straight face, say that you all have been anything other than open, transparent, and willing to accept comments and include answering innumerable questions from folks as they've come into you. And frankly, when you have a transparent process, you can anticipate that you'll get more questions. And I want to thank you all for doing that. On the business tax, I believe everybody ought to pay their fair share. And this particular assessment, in my opinion, goes beyond what is a fair share burden on the business side. I realize that it has implications, and I look forward to include a data point implication. And I'd be interested in how we keep track of the comings and goings of new businesses and departing businesses that come into our community. And there may be other methods for doing that, but I know the business tax or occupational tax, whichever you refer to it as, reflects that data. But to also say, and it's unfortunate, we all get stung every now and again with this notion that we're not business friendly. The truth is that the relief of this also follows in a long line of other supports that we've offered. During the down economy, we gave $6 million back. Now, this is unique because every private sector electric utility and public sector utility around this state charges that down deposit for opening up a business. And we decided that for those who were in good standing, we would give that money back, and we did that during the worst part of our local economy. We also did the guaranteed permitting. Commissioner, you'll remember from our target issue work, where if you don't get it in a certain number of days, you get it for free. And that's a guarantee that this government has made. Not to mention during the down economy, we took projects that were infrastructure projects that were scheduled for later in the cycle, and we moved those up to make sure that we could keep our local economy going during a difficult and down business time. And so, again, this is a gesture and an impactful one that follows in a line of other impactful ones. On the Palmer Monroe Teen Center, You know, this, I don't, everyone knows my affection and history with Palmer Monroe Teen Center, but I'm most compelled by it because it is a results-driven operation. And I just had, you know, I wanted to pull the stats as we had them. From the 2014 to 2015 cycle, the success rate of kids graduating from our Community Connections program, which is our restorative justice program, 94% success rate, meaning they did not go on to recidivate. The current recidivism rate at the state level for juveniles is around 40%. And my frustration with the county on this, and they're punting to the city and saying this is a city issue and a city problem, is that when those folks recidivate, they don't end up in a city jail because we don't have a city jail. There's a county jail. And so the financial benefit inured to them by not having young people being processed through their system is one that inures to their bottom line and not ours. But this really isn't a back and forth about whether it's the city or the county, because I live in the city, but I'm a Leon County resident. We all are. And I find it very short-sighted on their part that the burden for addressing these crime issues have been largely kicked to us, in spite of the fact that we don't run a jail, and so we don't receive any savings from that. When our arrests are made, they go into their system, and it's their budget that gets impacted, but it's our community's collective reputation that is badly stained by that. This program is showing results. You heard some of the testimonials tonight. I appreciate it and will continue to support it so long as the evidence dictates that there is a collective savings for our community and obviously a benefit to our community's young people. On the Ready for Work, some of the stats that we heard during the presentation and that we have access to, and that may or may not have been stated, is that there were 680 offenders that were released back into Leon County in fiscal year 2014-2015. So far this year, and we're only halfway through the year, 547 offenders have been re-released to our areas, and there is a projected 112 more that is expected to be released back to Leon County by the end of this year. Again, the recidivism rate is actually a little bit higher on the adult side. And so if we were to just do the math of those folks potentially going back into the system, it's hugely costly to our community, it's costly to the city, it doesn't help us get our crime rate under control. We absolutely have to have some intervention at this level. At least 1,000 additional offenders are projected to be released into this community over the next 4 years based on current convictions in our county alone. And the source there is the Florida Department of Corrections. 1 of every 4 offenders and 1 of every 3 juvenile offenders will have run-ins with the law within 3 years of their release. Those, again, if it's data-driven, I can get behind it. And if we're able to correlate an investment here and then a savings later, you know, we're all for it. And I just wish that we, again, could compel our counterparts across the street to be with us on that. Commissioner Richardson, to your comment around crime abatement, and I think it was specifically to the Cure Violence, I am, again, I'm a little skeptical of the solutions that worked for Chicago and whether or not they're immediately exportable to the problem that we have here. I know that we're all desperate for a solution on this, and we want to obviously get our hands wrapped around this in a smart way. But I would be hugely favorable of a more localized solution that got to what we understand our local drivers to be. And that if that is that a number of our folks who we're able to, using research and logarithms and predictive assessments, that we know the type of profile of individual based off of either incarceration rate, previous state of incarceration, neighborhoods, we know we can determine that. Maybe it means connecting them to workforce training. We know through Leon Works that we have a huge shortage in this area and across the country in the trades. So what would it mean to pipeline some of these folks into some trade associations through a partnership with Lively Technical Institute, maybe TCC, and pipeline them that way onto a workforce piece of this. The crime and justice piece, I think we've adequately resourced it. We've decided to hire more officers. We're in that process now of bringing them to scale. But Mr. Manager, and I mentioned this to you earlier, I echo this urgency call that Commissioner Richardson referenced. There ought to be a crisis team that every day is looking at what are the numbers, how are we doing as it relates to the crime rate today, what are the interventions that need to be made. There are places that have done this in real sophisticated ways, and I just think that we should figure out, I mean, this is our local crisis, and we can't tolerate, the people who are charged with working on this cannot tolerate another year of being at the top of the state. We must show improvements, and we must show gains here, and we're trying every which way that we know how, I think, to do that from a resourcing standpoint, but it has to show evidence improved on the ground, at least, certainly for me. I would honor the request that came from the city attorney's office. And also, and this is separate and it doesn't necessarily have a budget line item connected to it, but Commissioner Miller, I've heard you speak with great passion around a family-friendly workplace, and would love if we could convene a group of staff, if Commissioner Miller were interested, to work on what does that mean for the city of Tallahassee, what improvements, what we need to do in order to create a family reinforcing and supportive environment at the city of Tallahassee. If that's a request we're making for the private sector, we also ought to demonstrate that through our own practices and values within the government. Again, don't know if there's a financial number there, but I imagine that it certainly will impact our workplace practice. And I think that's it for me. Commissioner Miller?
Well, the trouble with going first is that you don't remember everything you wanted to throw out there, because you guys are so great about pointing out so many good things. First of all, I had neglected to mention that I would support the attorney's request, because I don't think he's asked for a budget increase since I've been here, which is 6 years now. The question I have about the about the crime problem. When we had our workshop on crime, I view this as a problem that is not only solved at the level at the point where there is a crime committed. And whatever we do about crime requires a comprehensive view of the causes of crime. That's why in that last year in the budget discussions, I pleaded that we do finance the legal services in North Florida, because I felt that was part of the crime prevention program that goes for Living Stones, the back to work programs, because until we address recidivism and until we are able to get people into jobs when they get out of prison, these are all things that, and until we address the fact that, 70% of the children of those incarcerated will end up incarcerated, that is not hiring a police officer. Those are separate and apart from that, and I'm still asking for a strategic 5-year plan showing us how we're gonna fund these programs, but it is comprehensive. It doesn't just include police officers, it includes these types of programs. In our last budget discussion, we added $400,000 to CHSP. That was, and as I remember it, supposed to be targeted toward the Promise Zone. And that would mean that Living Stones was one of the beneficiaries of the addition that we made this particular year. And now that we're adding this $400,000, I would like to have these folks go through the CHSP process, mainly because we just can't continue to add more and more and more and more. But I want to know if we've ever gone into that process with a priority area of interest. I don't know if that has ever happened before. And given the fact that crime prevention and a safe public safety is the highest priority of our population, I would like for us to at least consider the idea of I don't want to make a recommendation or a motion or anything that looks like that, but I just think we should think about a way to use that money to fund these needs by declaring a priority somehow. So however you can investigate that and look into it. I'd like to do that. This is incredibly important. This is probably the most important issue that is facing our city because of all of the ramifications, the effects on people's lives. The fact that once someone's in jail, they have so much trouble getting a job once they get out, and so for just one felony, they are going to be forever through their lives tagged, and that was the reason I supported Ban the Box. But so we need to develop a comprehensive plan. We need to consider other crime prevention programs than just hiring police officers, and that's something that I'd like to have as a priority. As far as the business tax is concerned, I shared Commissioner Ziffer's question as to how much of that business tax comes from outside of our community and how much of it is from our own local residents, and spoke to several members of the chamber who were putting this forward today, and also staff. And I have asked that we have the opportunity to have that information, but the chamber folks pointed out to me that even if it's a McDonald's or a chain, a national chain, they're franchised, and the person writing that check is a local resident. And when I mentioned Publix, they said, do you know think about how many people Publix employs? And so, and that coupled with my original concern with this thing, before the ask ever even came forward, I was upset whenever I found out that we were charging every vendor at the Lemoyne Arts Festival to come here and show their wares over the weekend. Now, I understand that it's common practice everywhere, but it just didn't seem right to me to do that. And so I already had a problem with this, even though I also paid it for several years too. But so I'm supportive of that if it is at all possible. As far as replacing the money, I hope you wrote down my suggestion when I made it earlier. When we sell property and these other policy issues that have always directed money into the deficiencies fund, let's take those and let's apply them to our general government capital improvements program. And any excess, you've predicted a certain amount of revenue. If it comes in more than that, that's where it goes. So that would be my solution to any money that we decide on the 13th of July needs to be added to the budget.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Oh, yes. One last thing. It brought up that the survey that we had done, well, nobody had seen it, so I suggest we put it out there, let people know the results, the way you have in our agenda item, and make sure that's on our website and that's available to the public for people to see that we actually did do a survey. And in fact, we surveyed several different ways, and that these were the results. Thank you.
Commissioners, any other comments? Thank you all for your feedback. Mr. Manager, I think, or Treasurer Clerk, I think it's appropriate that if there are speakers on non-agenda items that we might take up. But first, the City Attorney.
Mayor, Commissioners, I appreciate the situation we're in with the budget, and I very reluctantly asked for an increase in our budget with the City Attorney's Office this year. I think over the last 24 years, we've maintained a very frugal budget. The last 8 years, I think on one occasion we've asked for an increase, and that was to give all our attorneys iPads. It's a variety of increase in legal services that we're paying for, such as arbitrations and mediations. We're doing more of those, and in one sense, we're glad we're doing more so that we won't have more litigation, but they're increasing in cost. And for example, in land use disputes, we're trying to step in now at your suggestion in some very difficult land use decisions to see if we can get neighborhoods and developers to work things out. So I appreciate greatly the expression of support for our budget. It's out of approximately a $3 million budget, it's $132,000.
Thank you, Attorney.
And Mayor, there are no other speakers.
Any hands in the audience? Anybody want to speak? Okay, that's all right. Commissioners, if there is no further business, we stand adjourned. Thank you all for attending.